With brands like Vintage having such great value to quality ratio, do you think today's beginners would have a shock seeing what we had to contend with in the 60s and early 70s?
They'd be horrified. If they had to play what we had to start playing on, they would be totally shocked. I've got lots of guitars in my collection from that era, and the majority of them look like they were designed on description over the telephone. It was a very innovative time and a very inventive time for the brands that were coming from Japan and of course Europe, you know, because we couldn't get the Fender product or the Gibson product at that point. So there was a lot of innovation, a lot of great ideas, but most of them you could drive a bus underneath the action and there was no way of making it lower. And I mean, if you were lucky, you got the frets in the right place, and I mean the pickups would howl and scream, and they were still expensive in comparison to what a weekly wage was, you know. Guitars costing 3 times or 4 times a weekly wage, which means now that we were paying, in relative terms, we were paying almost £1,000 for what is actually a bit of firewood.
Can you tell us any specific things on some of these old guitars that, as a designer now, just make you howl with laughter?
Yeah, I've got one guitar that has a set neck. It's got a truss rod cover at the headstock, held on by 2 screws, but it hasn't got a truss rod in it. So you can imagine somebody looking at a photograph of this guitar with this white cover on and going, we have to put one of those on it, but they didn't know why it was there. You've got pickups that look like humbuckers, but they're actually single coils, but they've just got a big case around them with screws and pole pieces and things in there. You've got the most incredible vibratos, some that work really, really well and some that just don't work at all. Wood choices, thicknesses of bodies, actual size of bodies. You know, another guitar I've got's got a Jaguar-shaped body that it's half the size of the real guitar, but it's still a full-scale guitar. Rocker switches that look like they should be used on light switches, not guitar pickups and things like that. So, yeah, it's fascinating, but quite frightening when you think about it.
Your Italia guitars, they have a perfect blend of 60s kitsch, but with a modern feel and tone. How did the Italia idea come to you?
Italia started as a design consultancy from a Korean company that we've now become great friends, and I've worked with the factory now for the last 15 years since we did the Italia. They were a company that were making many, many guitars for many famous brands, but they wanted to be a little bit more in charge of their own destiny. So they wanted a brand of their own. And going back to the European guitars, I mean, as good or as bad as they were, they had phenomenal character, especially the guitars that came from Italy. Being a guitar fan, obviously, they had great appeal to me, but you knew that when you bought one, you were buying a collector's item now, so it was overpriced. Well, it was more expensive than what it should be because of its collectible value. And you couldn't take them on stage and play them because they just didn't work in a working environment. But it was the kind of guitar that looked so cool in videos, and all the bands wanted to use them in videos, but they still couldn't transfer them to the stage. So I thought, there's a market here. But if we could produce the look, but make them work in an environment that works on stage and they sound like a modern guitar, they don't have the, you know, the accordion switches that control all the different pickup combinations under the sun, there may be, you know, a product there. So the factory, the company worked really, really hard, and they perfected it. They really did. And we were showing them how to make guitars in what I call the American way, with the frets put in the way the Americans did, not the way the Asians did, and what have you, and different things, and set neck angles, and explain to them about what made a guitar feel really, really good. Those little nuances that, you know, you don't know unless you know. So I had to think of a name, and Italia came to me because, again, going back to my car days, I'm a big car enthusiast. There was a car in America called the Italia Roadster, and so we decided to call them Italia. And the only country that Italia doesn't work, of course, is Italy, because that's what Italia means. It means Italy. But so that's where the name came from, and then all the styling details of the badges and the way that they were stuck on the guitars and things was just all from that that sort of like 60s era of really, really cool guitars. But now we can play them on stage and they still look just as cool.